to talk about Final Fantasy VII, and we're going to talk a bit about a little bit of a history lesson around Gaelic, actually. So, because there's been a scenario that has developed over the last week. We say last week, it's more about 20 odd years. If not, actually, we're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of years. But I mean, we'll get into that in a minute. But just to give you guys a heads up of what we're about to talk about. Basically, there's a certain character in Final Fantasy VII called, how do I say this? Called Cait Sith. Cait Sith, Cait Sith, Cait Sith. Or Ketshi. Okay, so all of my life, and all of a lot of people's lives, if you lived in the West, probably pronounced, and I say probably because not everyone did, but probably announced a certain character in Fantasy VII as Cait Sith. So let me use a picture of good old Cait Sith. So I'm going to call him Cait Sith for now. I might change that later on. So this is Cait Sith. You might have seen him. You might have heard of him. If you've played Fantasy VII, you definitely know who he is. Cait Sith, and as I'm calling him for now, is a character in Final Fantasy VII. Back in 1997, Cait Sith, like all the characters in the game completely, there was no voice acting, and we had to rely on text to find out what these characters' names were, and we only used our voices to pronounce things. So this character's name is spelled CaitSith, Cait Sith. Yeah? So if you lived in the West, if you lived in the US, for instance, or if you lived in England or parts of Wales where I lived, you probably called him Cait Sith or Cait Sith or Cait Sith or something along those lines. However, there's a certain history around this character's name. For a few years, there's been rumblings. There's been rumblings around the fact that this character isn't actually called Cait Sith. It is actually called Ketshi. Now, a lot of people were like, what? It is literally, you look at the words, it's clearly said Cait Sith, or Cait Sith, or whatever you want to call it. But then, that's kind of where arguments kind of left. And people have not been like aware of why. Why is this character potentially called that? Because when you read the letter Caitsith, it clearly, from a phonetic perspective, from the English language, it is Cait Sith or Cait Sith. So basically, some of the rumblings about why this character may be called Ketshi is because in the original Japanese texts and the information that was in Japanese before it got translated to the West actually called this character Ketshi. And that's where people were kind of like, so it's not, it's Cait Sith. Similar thing like Tidus and Tidus in Fantasy X, or Zidane or Zidane in Fantasy IX, although there is a distinctive difference with this character, and we'll get into why. Because basically, Ketshi is actually not English language. It's actually Gaelic. And loads of people didn't know this, myself included, until this week. It's not actually, and so therefore, we're not phonetically saying the words right at all. We're saying them completely wrong. It's like people coming to bloody Wales and mispronouncing all of the places in Wales, which pisses off Welsh people. Like, there's a place called Betws-y-Coed, and it's a tourist attraction, but people in England call it Betws-y-Coed. Betws-y-Coed. And it's like, it's not, it's Betws-y-Coed. But because again, it's a different language, phonetically, we just go, okay, Like again, I live near Llandudno, whereas then people come here and go Llandudno. And it's like, okay. You know what I mean? It's not uncommon. But anyway, so when the Japanese developers of Final Fantasy VII, when Squaresoft, as it was in 1997, were doing their research and their development of this game, and they had this character as Ketshi, they were actually doing something quite cool, and I think it was really, really cool. I think it's really respectful, and it's actually, sorry, for those who don't know, again, Cait Sith is actually like I don't know what exactly it is, but basically it's a part of Gaelic mythology. It's a part of history. It's a part of it's a mythical creature. I think it's a mythical creature, I believe, in Gaelic lore. Again, my knowledge of that is virtually nothing, so I don't want to, say the wrong thing here. I'm being kind of careful what I'm saying. But along those lines, yeah. And this last week, look, minds were blown about this information. Like, I don't know why people weren't aware of this. Like, people have been hearing about the Cait Sith dilemma for ages, but not knowing the why people have been saying it. And then it kind of came to a head this week, because basically, in a nutshell, Square Enix tweeted out saying that this character is actually pronounced Cait Sith. And that's when Gaelic, Irish and Scottish Twitter kicked off. Basically, I've got Irish streamer friends that kicked off, rightfully so, because of, well, why? So Irish and Scottish and Gaelic Twitter kicked off basically saying, why the hell have Square Enix gone against what they put in place 25 odd years ago by putting in an Irish mythological name with an Irish mythological pronunciation of said name, and then 25 plus odd years later have gone, we're just going to dismiss all that and we're going to go with what the popular people of the West want. Like, that's where the argument is. So where some people have been like, oh, it's the same as Zidane and Zidane, or Titus and Titus. It's not. Like, that is a made up name that has no, mythological dying language type of dilemmas to it, because the Gaelic language is, well, it certainly was at one point very much a dying language, similar to Welsh was at one point, but thankfully a lot more people are speaking Gaelic nowadays, a lot more people are speaking Welsh nowadays because of the wonders of the internet, things like Duolingo and stuff like that. But up until about 20-30 years ago, the Welsh language was actually on its knees. I don't know how much Gaelic was on its knees, but it probably was in a similar boat. People have been presented with this information now, and they seem to be going in two directions, which is, one, to kind of go, oh shit, well, now that I'm presented with this new information, I feel like, maybe they should have kept the name as Cait Sith. Or, they're presented with this information and going, well, tough shit, I've always called it Cait Sith. I don't care about that dying language in the Irish and the Scottish and the Gaelic people. Fuck that. I'm still calling it Cait Sith. And it's like, that is so... that attitude fucks me off. That attitude fucks me off. And as I said, it annoys me that Square Enix have taken this tact as well. Because the people who developed this game actually did a good job back in, and again, those people then that called it Cait Sith in Japan 25 plus years ago, they couldn't do anything about the translations then, right? They hired Western people to translate their Japanese game into English, and those people then did the job. Some of it was a bit dodgy, most of it was fine, and in the end, because it was a text-based game, people in the West went Cait Sith, right? So, and that's the bit where again, Irish and Scottish and Gaelic people didn't really mind, because it was like, well, they understood the ignorance. They were like, it's a bit like me saying people come to my country, or this country of Wales, and go Betzicoed instead of Betzicoed. It's like, well, I get it, you're English or whatever, it doesn't, it's like, you kind of go, right, whatever, it's one of those things, and the Irish and the Scots have probably been the same. People calling it Cait Sith, whatever, type of thing. But now that Square Enix have kind of gone, well, fuck that, we're still going to call it Cait Sith. It's like, no, that doesn't sit right. That doesn't sit right. And that's why the Scots and the Irish are pissed off with Square Enix, basically. And that's why, if you've seen anyone on Twitter, or if you've seen anyone and generally on social media, kind of dismissing this argument, I wanted to kind of use my very small platform to kind of talk about this, because I do have a lot of Irish people in our community, and they know way better than me. I can sympathise as a fellow Celt that this sucks. You know what I mean? So I want to use my tiny little platform to kind of bring a little bit of awareness to the situation, a little bit of the context around why this is important and why, really, Square Enix should backtrack from this and call him Cait Sith. But hey, this game's so far into development right now, it's too late. They're not going to get all the voice actors who have voiced all the lines to then start changing little things to Cait Sith. It's not going to happen. It's too late. And that sucks, you know? So it's just one of those things, you know? So it's important to me. It's important to me as someone who, you know, as I said, there's certain Celtic blood in me. I am actually a quarter Irish. I haven't actually mentioned that before, but I am actually quarter Irish. So there is Celtic blood in me somewhere. And someone that does sympathise with the Irish, with the Scottish, with the Gaelic, especially again, I can sympathise from a Welsh language speaker to a Gaelic language speaker. There's lines, there's parallel lines between, you know, my path in life and these poor people who don't want to see their language dying out and disrespected, and you know what I mean. That sucks, and I sympathise greatly for Irish and Scottish people and people speaking Gaelic about this particular situation. So, you know, that's all I wanted to do. Is I wanted to use my tiny platform to talk about it, because then there's certain people who hopefully will have that information now and go, okay, if I see someone slandering the Cait Sith dilemma, then hopefully now that with the little bit of education that you may now hopefully have, you can start to correct people, and if they're still going to be dismissive, then I'm sorry, but that's just a shitty attitude. But whatever, you know what I mean? I call it Cait Sith or Cat Shit. I mean, I think we should just all just go cat shit. And then that way, no one can say anything, no matter what side of the argument they are. If they're on the Gaelic side of the argument, or if they're on the Western side of the argument, they can just go cat shit. Everyone wins. You know what I'm saying? So